Cool. Awesome. So
I could leave now just because you're recording.
welcome everyone. We're here with Anne and Nora, and I'm sure there are going to be plenty of people watching the recording at a later stage. We might have a few more people sneak in because I've taken the waiting room off, so that might happen. I'm just going to pop you on mute, Anne, for now. And what I'm going to do is just do a screen share. There we go. Hold on. All right. Never know how this really works. Are you getting there? Let's make that bigger. Cool. All right. So our free talk today is all about intermittent fasting and your dosha. And we'll get into the dosha part in a little while. Just a quick recap for those who haven't met me yet, like Nora, who might not know too much about me, and anyone else watching. I am a yoga teacher at a studio in Takai. I've got some amazing teachers there who are teaching, like Anne joined Rabia's class last night. We're pretty much trying to pick up classes again, which is fantastic. So that's going along nicely. You might also recognize me from Yoga Awakening Africa, the yoga magazine from 2008, and then kind of the blog and travel stories and adventures that happen thereafter. I am one of the teacher trainers at the Academy of Yoga and Ayurveda. We've got our new course up and running, a 200-hour course. Yoga retreats with our yoga teachers retreat in March. So I know, Anne, you joined last year's one. So we've got an annual one again happening in March. And then I do podcasts with Nourish and Restore, my friend Nicole, where we share weekly podcasts. First we have a conversation one week, then we do yoga, then we do some breathing, then we do a yoga nidra. So those are loads of fun, and we've just navigated all the way through the chakras. So you might want to pop on there and have a listen. Nice to kind of listen to the conversations while you're driving and take like half an hour out to do the yoga in the evenings or something like that. So those are great resources. Most of you know that I love traveling, and that's how I met Craig, and that's how I turned into a farm girl, and I've always been an animal lover, but moved from yoga studio owner to living on a farm, and that has led me to becoming a yoga health coach. So I'm busy training, and pretty much the reason why I'm doing these free talks and all of that is to share what I'm learning on my course with you guys. And it's a way for me to help bring a sense of like order and rhythm to all the chaos that is constantly around us, so that we can feel a lot more healthy, a lot more vibrant, a lot more vital, and we can really follow our dharma, which is kind of like our purpose. So I find like when we kind of all the busyness and the craziness that's around us, when we manage to bring that into some form of structure and order, there's so much more clarity. So that's what I'm doing with these talks. What our plan of action will be is we'll start in a moment with a nice centering practice. Then we'll have a chat about what intermittent fasting is and rhythmic eating. Then we'll chat about flipping fat. We'll have a look at the different metabolic types and the doshas, and how to use intermittent fasting in kind of like a 1-week experiment. And then I'll chat to you a little bit about my shifting from chaos to rhythm program, as well as kind of 2 ways to see if it is right for you. And then we'll open up the space for any Q&As, and we'll kind of have a little chat there. So when I was kind of like chatting about what it is I do and how I got to, doing this workshop in intermittent fasting, and I'll say, it's part of some of the stuff I'm learning in the course right now. So by no means am I an expert on intermittent fasting, but what I can do is just share from what I've learned and what I'm implementing and what I'm doing. So hopefully that'll give you some insight as well. We all start at different levels, and kind of this is very much going to be an introductory phase and connecting it with the Ayurveda. So seeing how the two merge and mesh together. All right. So we are going to start with a nice centering practice. Just for a minute or 2 minutes. So you get to close your eyes. You get to you can move away from this looking at the screen, and you can take a moment to just observe your breath. Noticing the breath maybe becoming a little slower and deeper. We're going to do a breathing practice that is called the WHO breath, the WHO breath. I learned this one from Dhanafari. It's a beautiful breathing practice, and it really helps to slow things down. We're going to take 10 slow breaths together. And in other words, what happens is as you inhale, you just allow a natural breath in. As you exhale, you're going to purse your lips a little, and you're just going to release the breath going. So it's very, very slow. It's just like a breeze, a wind gently coming out. You're allowing the next breath to fill. And then again, you purse your lips. Inhale smoothly. And you continue going at your own time, at your own pace. What you may notice is that the breath becomes a little longer, the exhalation becomes a little slower. If you find it makes you feel a little giddy or uncomfortable, you just take another natural breath in between. You let yourself settle again. And when you feel comfortable, you continue. But what you should find is that as you exhale, you'll notice the abdominals starting to engage and to draw in as you really start to expel the air, expel the air, expel the air. And then once you've done that full expulsion, there's more space for an inhalation to fill. Which means that it is very natural for that inhalation and the exhalation to become longer and longer as you progress into the practice. We're going to do just one more round. And after that round, just stay in that sense of stillness, that quietness, that sense of space where there was an emptiness at the end of the exhalation and a fullness at the end of the inhalation. And how when you were working with the breath, it automatically settled your nervous system, quietened things down, brought you to more focus. And then when you're ready, you can bring the palms of your hands together, get your hands really nice and warm. Wrap them over your eyes, take a deep breath in. Sigh it out. You can blink your eyes a few times, looking into the distance. Not quite at the screen just yet, or you may want to look down at the ground, maybe just looking over your one shoulder and then the other, reorientating you to the space you're in. And then when you're ready, you can bring yourself back to our session together. There we go. Lovely. All right, so just notice how when you take even just 10 breaths, there's like a centeredness that arrives. There's a quietening that happens. So there we go. Perfect. Right, so we'll get straight into our intermittent fasting and what it is. So pretty much what intermittent fasting is the sense that there is a pause. It's giving yourself a break from taking in stimulants. In other words, taking in food, taking in calories. When we give ourselves a sense of pause, a long enough pause, we allow autophagy to happen. So auto being self, phagy being eating, so self-eating. What happens with autophagy is it's pretty much constructive catabolism, the breaking down of the unhealthy, the unwanted, the kind of like unsafe cells in our system. And that autophagy only actually can start kicking in after about 13, 14 hours of fasting. It doesn't happen with less than that. It gets more effective and more efficient the longer you've got a break, a pause. So when you go to your 18, your 20, your 24, and so forth, and the amount or the type of cells it can break down increases. We're not going to kind of get into that too deeply, but just know that really like a basis is around like 13, 14 hours where you really need to give your body a pause. What happens is with these cells that are maybe unhealthy, they're not quite operating at their optimum. If they don't get broken down and reutilized and reabsorbed in your system, they're one way of causing or forming ama in your body, which ama in Ayurveda is kind of like stored toxins. And it can be physical ama. We can also create ama with our emotions and our mental state. And what happens is that when we start looking at intermittent fasting, we slowly start to address the ama that is in our system. So what Kate says, for example, is fasting clarifies your deeper desires into a vision for your future. The vision is for your better life. Along the path, the fasting path, you find truth, depth, and light. Because you're giving yourself space, you are able to kind of go and search for clarity in different places. You're not trying to get nourishment and love and sustenance from the food you're taking in. You're actually able to get a lot more clarity from other areas in your life. And the side benefit that she calls it, which I love, is like you prevent and you cure disease. I like how she thinks that that's kind of like a side benefit where most people come into intermittent fasting or rhythmic eating because, you know, they want to cure a disease or prevent. They come in from a fear base, you know, where they want to prevent not getting diabetes or not getting a heart condition or a cancer. But very often we don't get into it because of wanting to find truth or depth or light. So whichever way one's coming into it is absolutely fine. I just love how she says it's a side benefit. And she's saying, you know, it's the anti-aging elixir you've been waiting for. So what I love about kind of the combination of Ayurveda and intermittent fasting is that in Ayurveda, we actually call it rhythmic eating, or I prefer to call it rhythmic eating, where there is more rhythm to how it is you're eating and what it is you're eating. Fasting always sounds like, to me, it sounds like it's restrictive, like you can't have something, where rhythmic eating, to me, sounds like more natural, like there's you're working with the natural pulsation that there is all around us. So the natural pulsation of the seasons changing from summer to autumn to winter to spring, and moving through that, through the natural pulsation during the day, where we're moving from the kapha time of day that we're in now to the pitta time of day, at midday, noon, when the sun is the strongest, moving into the vata time of day, and then again moving through that. And how working with how we eat at the different times is so important as well. So I love the idea of rhythm when we talk about food. What we're going to be looking at with intermittent fasting is the idea that when we eat too frequently, so especially this snacking habit that we've just seemed to grown up with, or at least I know that I grew up with that a lot, is what generates disease. Eating less frequently is what prevents and cures disease. And what I wanted to look at, when my laptop decides to play ball, there we go, is the fact that when we focus on intermittent fasting, it moves us from using kind of the our blood sugar to nourish us, but it actually switches us to fat metabolism, and we start to crave good fat. So what Kate says again, and I'll read this because she unpacks it so well, in the sense that rhythmic eating switches on your fat metabolism, burning fat for energy, rather riding the waves, rises and falls of your blood sugar from eating too frequently. So in other words, what happens is that when we have that, at least that 14 or 16-hour pause, your body is able to go deep into fat metabolism. So instead of using the energy from working from the blood, the nutrients that are in the blood, it's actually going deeper into the deeper layer and drawing out or working with fat metabolism. When you allow your blood sugar to drop low enough, which can't happen unless you extend yourself extended time, you allow yourself extended time without eating, your body starts looking for surplus calories to burn from your fat tissue. So that's exactly what I was saying. When you run off your fat, you'll crave good fats and good proteins, and you'll be deeply satisfied by real food. And that is the amazing thing that I've noticed with intermittent fasting, is that when you give yourself the pause, you don't crave these sugar spikes and the cookies in the afternoon and the this and the that, because your body has gone or is going into that deep fat metabolism, where it's like a slower release of energy and sustenance that is available to you. And it's really, really calming on the nervous system and the mind to be able to experience that. As soon as I noticed that I've, been out and been to a party and had the sweets and the chocolates and something like that, the next day I definitely turn into a snacker and a picker again. And I've got to make a conscious decision that, okay, let me get back into my rhythmic eating routine so that I have less of these cravings. And as soon as it's there, I could literally have a piece of cake in front of me and I don't desire it. Whereas sometimes, having maybe something with like healthy fats, so like date balls with some, soaked almonds, those kind of nice date balls that we make, eating those then really feel nourishing, fulfilling, and warming. So that is kind of like why you want to start looking at this rhythmic eating, in the sense that you want to be able to really go deep into the fat storage to draw out that deep nourishment that is in those cells, and to allow the bad cells that are, not by that anything's bad, but the unhealthy cells to maybe be to be broken down, to be reabsorbed, reutilized in the system, and then released what is not needed. Right. So that is just a little bit of a background when it comes to kind of rhythmic eating, intermittent fasting, and things like that. What I thought I would spend a little bit of time on, because I know that it'll probably be of interest to my yoga friends and people out there, is how this relates to the doshas. I'm taking a little pause. All right, so what we have when it comes to intermittent fasting is that there are three tendencies. The first tendency is catabolic, which is a dispersion of energy. The next is metabolic, which is a kind of where you transmute energy, where it kind of like changes energy, uses it. And anabolic, which is building or accumulating energy. And those relate to, in intermittent fasting, three body frames. They call it the ectomorphic body frame, which is often depicted as like a long, thin rectangle. And there's often people who, you know, have long, kind of like long bodies, thin, lithe, slim bodies. Excuse me. Then we have the mesomorphic body type, which is often got depicted by inverted triangle, so the broader shoulders and the narrower waist. And they usually have a lot of fire and determination, and very, very, very like, they're the ones who get hangry, like, you know, they want to eat now. And then we've got the endomorphic body types or frame, which is often depicted as a square, which are your sturdy, solid, kind of like dependable people. They also are able to, they've got a lot of, what is it called? Resilience, and they can just keep going and going and going and going and going. They've got a lot of kind of excess and sustained energy within them. Right. So if we look at those three body types and how they relate, in yoga, we often refer to like the ectomorphic body type as the vatas, who are the light frames. They have very, very variable digestion. They lead towards bloating. They're the ones who can easily skip meals or forget to eat. And yeah, that's often kind of like the vatas. The mesomorphic body frames are often related to the pitta type, who are, like I was saying, the go, go, go. They have the strong digestion. They feel hunger really, really strong. They're the ones who can really tell you, listen, I know what it feels like to be completely empty. Their fire burns quickly and strongly. I'm just trying to think what else. Pretty much when it comes to digestion and pitta, those are the ones. They're the ones who have really, really strong agni and kind of like can burn through their food quickly and easily. And the endomorphic body frames are often related to the kapha body types, which are stable, which are strong, which are, they're kind of the people who naturally, because they've got that accumulative energy, they accumulate not just like stuff around them, but they accumulate friends, they accumulate pets, they they just like they accumulate. Everyone's drawn to them because they're just so sturdy and so stable and so resilient and committed. Yeah, they're the ones who often love food, and food often loves them, and it just stays on them. And they're the ones who can really benefit like from one or two really hearty, nourishing meals, and then to create space and lightness. Okay, so those are kind of like when we look at the metabolic types, when you look at the doshas, then rhythmic eating, how that all falls into place. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through each tendency, each body type, and we'll have a little chat about how intermittent fasting could be or would be appropriate for that body type and what it would look like for them. So we'll start with the first one, which is vata. Now, what I was saying is that vatas are variable burners because vata have so much air and ether in them. They are light, they're sporadic, they kind of can move from one way to the other. They do not like rhythm and structure. They struggle with rhythm and structure. Rhythm and structure is ideal for them. That is what they need. But because they've got so much air and ether, it's really, really hard for them to stick to rhythm and structure. But when it is there, it is great. So the ideal thing for vatas when it comes to meals and eating, because they're such variable burners, is the regularity of meals. For them to start with a 14-10. So if you know anything about intermittent fasting, kind of its times like broken up. So the first number is the time or the amount of hours relating to fasting. In other words, fasting being you only taking in water during that time or herbal teas. And in the mornings, it could be a coffee, but that does not include sugar or milk, or like it would be a plain coffee. So in other words, for vata, the 14 hours would be 14 hours of fasting, and the 10 would be the 10 hours of a feeding window or an eating period. Now, in Ayurveda, it's also very, very clear and very what's the word, not so like recommended would probably be the way, is that you really want between like 4 to 6 hours between your meals to allow digestion to happen properly. And that is why in Ayurveda we don't recommend snacking at all, because it messes too much with your digestion. What Ayurveda recommends is, like for a vata, would be like 3 healthy meals at exactly the same time a day. Like there would be a breakfast. So if you're going for 14 hours, what you would actually do is you would look at the day before. So you would probably finish eating at about 5 p.m., say 5 p.m. That would mean that till 5 a.m., 6, 7, you would have like breakfast at between maybe 7 and 8 a.m. If you have your dinner or your last meal at 6 p.m., you would have your breakfast at kind of between 8 and 9 a.m., or you would be breaking your fast at that time. You would then be having your lunch at about 12 at noon, and then again your dinner at kind of 5, so that you've 5:30, so that you've finished at 6. So for vatas, having kind of breakfast at 8, a really good lunch at midday, and then a dinner at 5, 6 o'clock is great for them. What vatas want to do is to break their fast with a good hearty meal, something that is warm, something that is spiced, and something that is rich in fat. So it could be something like stewed apples with oats and loads of nuts, and maybe nuts and seeds, chia seeds, something that has maybe lots of cinnamon in it, maybe a little bit of cardamom, really something that is nourishing, maybe a couple of dates, even if they need the sweetness, something that is warming, nourishing, and really makes you feel good and sustained, so that you can get to lunchtime without feeling that you need like a little snack in between. And once vatas get, and this is what I've noticed, once we get into a comfortable 14-10 rhythm, we can start moving towards a 16-8, so where you're fasting for 16 hours and you give yourself an 8-hour eating window. And then it may look like it would be like maybe just 2 meals a day. So you might kind of like start with, you might break the fast with like a healthy breakfast. You might have a really good nourishing lunch, and then it might be a light soup in the evenings for dinner. So when I'm talking about meals, I'm talking about like good, proper, substantial meals, and maybe just like something light that will get a vata through the night to the next day in the evening. What vatas want to be focusing on is self-massage and slow walks. So when we do Abhyanga, when we do the self-massage in yoga, you are actually bringing in those healthy oils. So for vatas, especially like sesame oils and the olive oils, when you massage that into your skin, it gets absorbed nice and deeply. So there's that deep nourishment that's happening into the cells. And then from there, it can move into the bloodstream, into the body. When we do self-massage, it's different to digestion. We are not actually causing our stomach to be digesting and breaking things down. It is actually going straight into the system automatically. So for vatas who's starting with intermittent fasting, what they want to be doing is spending a lot of time doing self-massage in the mornings or the evenings so that they can get more nourishment from the oils that they're taking or should be taking in, as well as taking slow walks. So instead of feeling that they need to snack in between meals, to actually take time out and to be in nature and to go and walk and to move slowly, calmly, and kind of like with awareness. All right, so that is how vatas, I know because vatas are such sporadic eaters, they'll skip meals here, then all of a sudden they'll be hungry and they'll want to be grazing and they'll grab a handful of nuts and this and that. For vatas, it's really, really important to do the meal planning and the meal spacing so that you know exactly what is happening on a Monday for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And even though they may not stick to the meal plan completely, but just to have it there, will start to feel a lot calmer and feel a lot more relaxing for them. All right, so that is that with vatas. Just, sorry, 1 minute. Paolo, I'm busy, I cannot talk. Okay, so the second set that we have are our pittas. Now, like I was saying before, the pittas are the hot burners. They are the ones who can digest really, really easily. They are the ones who have intense hunger. They've got strong digestion, and they really benefit from having substantial meals also unscheduled. They're the ones who can, if you're high in pitta and you're not used to intermittent fasting, start with a 14-10 like the vatas, but you'll notice that very easily you can get to a 16-8. And what pittas want to do is they want to start decreasing spicy foods. They want to decrease the caffeine and alcohol, and they want to start eating clean. They want to start eating plenty of green vegetables, lots of protein, and lots of good fats. Pittas can really benefit from high, I mean, everyone can benefit from high value protein and fat, but pittas really do need to maybe be a bit more mindful when it comes to their meals, that they're doing that. Again, 2 really substantial meals are great for pittas, with maybe then a third that is lighter. So pittas can often break their fast with maybe like a green smoothie or a green juice that is filled with nutrients. Vatas often struggle with juices and smoothies. It often doesn't sit well in their digestion, but pittas, because they've got such strong digestion, actually do really well with breaking their fast with like a green juice or a green smoothie. That might mean that it can take them for an hour or two to lunch, where they can have a really nice hearty lunch, maybe at 12 o'clock. And then at 4, 5, 6, whenever they decide they're going to kind of like stop their feeding time, is that they would then again have another substantial meal that they're taking. I think your internet must have just dropped there, and they're just taking the enjoying another meal and allowing kind of the rest of the day, the rest of the evening to be digested. All right, so that is when it comes to the pittas, what it is that they should be doing. And it could also work the other way for pittas, where maybe when they want to break their fast, they actually want to have something substantial. So they could have something substantial then, maybe a substantial lunch a couple of hours later, kind of between, again, midday is probably what I'm going for, and then maybe like a soup or something light in the evenings. So when you start playing around with intermittent fasting, try different things to see what works for you and your lifestyle. The main thing is that we are diurnal animals, beings, creatures. We need to be eating in daylight hours. We are not nocturnal. We are not like our cats and our dogs and kind of like the Diker Simon that I've got outside who eat and graze at night. We like to see what we're eating. So the biggest thing is that our main meal needs to be around midday, so that there's plenty of time for it to be digested correctly. All right. For pittas, it is really important for them to focus on spending time outdoors, because they can get so focused on their work and what they're doing, they often don't take time to enjoy life and to relax. So for them to get out and enjoy being in nature and switching off, kind of like maybe going outside to do a meditation, going outside to do their exercise or their pranayama practice, taking a midday walk, all great for pittas to be doing. So again, pitta, remember, is the energy of fire with kind of like a little bit of water or mist surrounding that fire. That is your pitta dosha. All right, so our kappas, which are the combination of earth and water, forming this beautiful, I suppose, combination of solidity and fluidity. And when kappas are in balance, they have such beautiful stamina. That's the word I was looking for earlier, stamina, to just kind of go and go and go. The kappas can really benefit because they are such slow burners, because they've got such a sturdiness to them, because they've got so much earth and water in them. They can really benefit from an 18-6 fasting period. In other words, 18 hours of no food, no calorie intake, and then they have like a 6-hour window where they're eating. So again, if you know that you're a kappa body type and all of a sudden this sounds shocking, you build it up like with anything. You start really, really slowly. You start with a 14-10. Then after a week or two, when that starts to get comfortable, you move to a 16-8. Then when that gets comfortable, you start to throw in an 18-6 once or twice a week to see how that makes you feel. And you play with it that way. Because the kappas have so much endurance, they rarely get like hangry. They rarely get irritable from hunger, whereas a pitta will get irritable if they're hungry. So what kappas want to focus on is decreasing the amount of carbs they take in and to really increase greens and beans. Because of the greens and the beans being light, especially the kind of like your sprouted mung beans and things like that, they can really benefit from that kind of that pulse of energy. Kappas can also aim towards OMADs, which are 1 meal a day. Because I'm so high vata, I don't think I've ever played with that because it just doesn't work for me. But for my friends who are high kappa and they play with it, they find that they have so much time, so much space, so much lightness in it, and they find it's amazing. with the kappas, they can mix up the times and the rhythms, and it's actually good for them to mix up time and rhythms. Where for the vata and the pittas, it's actually more important for them to eat on schedule and at specific times. For vata to have really that regularity is really good. For pittas, they can play a little bit, kind of like with the breaking the fast time, and when they're going to be taking their last meal, their dinner time in. Whereas kappas can actually really benefit from having different start times from day to day, and really mix it up quite a lot, because they're so structured and solid and kind of grounded. For them to have some variability and to have things mixed up is actually quite good for their system. So kappas really want to focus on active evenings and lively mornings. So in the sense of, like, if a kappa is finishing dinner, say at 3 p.m., they want to be really active for the rest of the afternoon and evening, where they are doing house chores, maybe they're doing their hobbies, they're moving, spending time together as a family. That is when kind of like kappas want to be active. And in the morning, the first thing that the kappas should be doing in the morning is breath body practice. So our habit 4 in our 10 habits is that kappas need to move for at least 20 minutes in the morning to get things moving and grooving. So remember that when it comes to these 3 doshas, it is our prakriti, our dosha, that we're looking at when it comes to intermittent fasting, not necessarily the vikriti, being that state of us that is out of balance. So and there's the Banyan Botanicals, I'll give you the link to the Banyan Botanicals website. If you don't know what your dosha is and where your imbalance is, they have a free quiz on their site, banyanbotanical.com, I think it's called. And you can find out what your dosha is there. When you know what your balance state is and your imbalance state is, then you're able to, again, operate more from a smarter space, I suppose. Because often we may think that, we are kappa, but actually we're just vata with maybe a vata imbalance or a kappa imbalance. So we may actually need to stick more to this type of schedule instead of thinking that this is kind of what we are. And it goes for all of them. All right, the best thing to do is kind of like looking at what is your body type, in a sense, and that usually gives a good indication as to which dosha you are. And it's not looking at like maybe the additional adipose tissue that's sitting on our body, but more with regards to like bone structure. Like, do you have quite narrow bone structure, or which would be vata, or do you have really strong, heavy bones? So anyway, that is for another day, another story. I'm sure, and I think I can't remember which workshop I did, we went quite deeply, I think maybe into the perimenopause workshop, we went quite deeply into the dosha. So you can always have a listen back to that one. So pretty much what intermittent fasting or rhythmic eating could look like for a week's experiment is that you give yourself the time and the space for a week to experiment. And that's why we're going to be kind of testing out in our clean eating challenge this coming week, is that start, if this is all totally new to you, try and aim towards a 14-10. Or if you're already doing a 14-10, maybe see if you can move towards a 16-8 and see what that feels like. So remember, the first number is the number of hours you're fasting, and the second is the number of hours where you've got an eating window. The eating window doesn't mean that you can now spend 10 hours eating. It means that you've got 10 hours to have your 3 healthy meals or your 2 healthy meals in that time. right? So let's just be clear about that. The best thing to do is to literally get a meal plan out, and you can easily draw one up, or you can email me and I can send you kind of like a breakdown of what it looks like. And you decide on your meal times. And then once you've decided on your meal times, you can decide what it is you're wanting to eat. For me, when I do kind of like clean eating and I just want to create space and time for myself, I'll usually make like a pot of dal and rice or khichdi, because then I know that at least for 2 meals that day, it's the same thing, and I just reheat kind of my dinner a little later after I've had lunch. I keep it simple, I keep it easy. I don't spend a lot of time in the kitchen cooking a million and one different things. If it's weather like this, where it is cooler and wetter and rainy here where I am at the moment, I'll enjoy having like I was chatting before, like stewed apples with chia seeds and maybe some oats and nuts and seeds. And then maybe I'll do like dal and rice or khichdi or stir-fried veg with something. And I'll literally have that for lunch, and then dinner with whatever protein. Maybe I'll have an egg, or we've got avos in season at the moment, so sometimes some avo there. So decide on your meal times and decide what you're having, and really make them delicious so that you feel well nourished. And if you're going to have a dessert, if you're going to have a date ball or something like that, have that straight after lunch. Don't think that, oh, okay, I'm going to have lunch and then I'm going to have like a cup of tea at tea time with a little treat. Like, allow that to just fall by the wayside, and have your dessert with your lunch meal so that you feel fulfilled and nourished, so that when the challenge arises at tea time to have a little sweet snack, you can actually nourish yourself by going for a nice 10 or 15-minute walk, or you're going to nourish yourself by lying down and doing a yoga nidra or a meditation instead. What really, really helps, and this is what I love, I always have my flask with me, is to sip hot water throughout the day. Every 20 minutes, whenever you think about it, have your flask and sip hot water. If it's summer and it's hot, just room temperature water. Have your bottle of water and keep drinking, keep sipping water, because it'll make you feel less hungry, and it'll also help with kind of moving all that is not needed in your system out. Spend time going for walks, because you're not going to be constantly grazing or opening and closing the fridge doors to look for things. You're going to find that you have more time. And that's when you can spend, even if it's an afternoon, 5 minutes, just giving yourself a nice little rub down, or in the mornings doing the self-massage, doing that. The other thing that you probably notice is that, or what I noticed for myself, is that when I've kind of noticed my fasting times, when I've had my last kind of like, I'll write down when I've had like my last calorie intake in the evening, maybe something slipped and maybe it moved to like 7 o'clock, maybe I got sidetracked and popped something into my mouth that I shouldn't have, then I'll count my 14 hours and I'll know that, okay, you know, I can break my fast at this time. And I just jot it down so that I've got a visual representation of that. What I often, or what I have noticed with myself, is that there's certain things that I do, sequences that I do, like first it'll start, like I'll start pacing the house, then I'll start going to the kitchen, then I'll start going to the kitchen, I'll start opening the fridge door and closing, I'll go into the pantry. And I realized that it's not that I'm hungry or that I'm bored. I'm actually procrastinating. I'm not doing something that I know I should be doing, like a task that I've set myself to do that day that I haven't done, be it making a phone call or an appointment, be it putting together a slideshow, be it, you know, doing my accounts. I often find that if I find there's a certain habit habits that lead from one to the other that I do now, that it's all got to do with procrastination. And often when I can catch myself doing the pacing, I now can say, you're procrastinating, go sit down and do what it is you want to do. And then I don't even get to the part where I go to the kitchen or to the pantry or to the fridge, because I've done it now enough times to know that I'm procrastinating. So I just thought I'd add that in because I think it is relevant for so many of you out there as well. And if you can catch yourself in procrastination mode, it might help you from stopping to look in the fridge and the pantry for things to snack on. All right. And then the other thing is not to fret when you go off track. Like, we all have good days and we all have bad days and we all have things that happen and don't happen, but don't feel like, just because I had a bad day, this is never going to work for me. It's not going to happen. Realize that, okay, you know what? I can make a decision right now to stop doing what I'm doing so that going forward, it can be better. And it doesn't have to mean that, I need to start tomorrow. I need to start on Monday. I need to start after X, Y, and Z. You can actually make a choice and do the change right now. So don't fret. We all have those moments, those days. And yeah, realize that you too are human. So some easy tips. The first thing is to do this is to find a buddy or someone who you can be accountable to or with. If you have a buddy who you can check in every day and say, listen, this is going to be my eating window. This is going to be my fasting window. What is yours? How was your yesterday? It's super, super helpful. And that's where, with our clean eating challenge, we're going to be doing a lot of that, because we're in a group together where we're going to be holding each other accountable, and it's going to make it so much easy. So find a buddy, go outside and move. We've chatted about that. Change when you eat before what you eat. So what happens is that when there are too many changes we need to make, we get, it stresses us out and there's chance for failure. So rather change when you eat. Have your meal plan in front of you, put in the times when you want to eat, and then you can put in what it is you want to eat. And don't make it so much different than what you're eating right now. If you're used to having, I don't know, what was the thing I used to do a lot of that wasn't great? Maybe muesli and yogurt, and chopped banana in that. That would be like my quick go-to breakfast fix. Whereas now what I might do is, okay, like maybe I'll stew an apple, or maybe I'll stew a banana with some oats and nuts and all the good things that I like. But maybe what I'll do is, because I do like that crunch, is maybe throw just a sprinkling of the muesli on top after I've made it, or cook some muesli with it. So that there's not so much change and so much disruption in what I'm eating. Remember to enjoy fabulous fats. So rather go for your good fats, your avocados, your coconut oils and milks and creams, your butters and your ghees, and your healthy fats and oils, your eggs. I'm just trying to think what else there is. Don't be scared of those. Obviously, if there is, what's the word with a C? Not, you all know what I'm talking about. Not calories, not cardio. Anyway, it'll come to me. And I'll probably know. You're always welcome to unmute yourself if you can think of the words on the tip of my tongue. So simple, everyone's sitting there going, you banana. Anyway, just be mindful of, maybe not having too much. Work with what it is that you where you're at. All right, so fun, active evenings for everyone, self-massage for everyone. When it comes to travel and socializing, sometimes it is that we've got a wedding or a dinner or something or another, and I think, oh, well, now I can't, go and have fun with my friends. No, you just shift your fasting and your feeding time. So if you know you're going to be out and you know you're going to be having dessert or drinks till 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., then you know that you're only going to break your fast the next day at 12 o'clock or 1 p.m. for lunch. So you're going to skip breakfast completely and you're only going to have a lunch. That's the beauty with this rhythmic eating or the intermittent fasting, is that you can just change it to suit your social life. Or what you can do is, if, for example, you have a dinner appointment with a friend, just saying, listen, I'm trying this rhythmic eating. Could we maybe change our, date to a lunch? Or could we maybe go and hang out at the beach and go for a walk at the beach or the forest instead, because I'm trying to do something different and I really don't want to go to this restaurant. Or maybe change the restaurant that you're going to that has better food options, healthier food options. And really do keep to 2 real meals. Don't make them unenjoyable or too if you're going to have a soup, make it like a hearty soup. And maybe if you're going to do it with some bread or a side of an avocado or rice or whatever it is, don't make it blah. Make it enjoyable. And the other thing is, if you are a coffee drinker, just keep the coffee for now. Don't feel that you need to lose that. So the biggest thing with the tips that I would notice or come to realize is having someone to do this with. So find a buddy, a friend who you can do it with. When we have that person that we're accountable, it really makes the practice bulletproof. And that's pretty much where the course that I'm talking about or working with this year, for where we shift and we move from the space of chaos to rhythm, comes into it, where we really working with a group of like-minded people. We're working towards a goal. We're using the 10 habits of Ayurveda. We cycle through them 3 times, and we do it for a full year, because change takes time. And that's the same thing with intermittent fasting. Don't just think, you're going to do it for a day or a week or a month and you're going to see massive changes. You'll see changes, but you really need to stick with it for a long period of time to see the effective change that it has, not just for your body, but for your mental capacity and the stability for your emotions as well. There are never, ever, 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 ever any short-term fixes with anything. Change takes time. It's taken time for your body to get itself into a way that it is, and it takes time to move out of that. When we're in the right group of people who are all moving towards the same kind of change, we're actually able to do it quite quickly. And that's why we only need a year to do that. So with the program, I have now created 3 options, where there's a standard option, there's a yogi option, and the VIP option of working with me. And the investment starts at 26,000 Rand. So that's for the full year. And often it sounds like quite a lot, but when you realize that it is an investment, not just in your health, but it improves your relationships, it improves your career, it improves your work opportunity, it really isn't a big investment. So because I've seen what it's done for me and the changes that I've experienced myself, I'm so pumped on helping others as well. And I'm serious about the changes that are possible. Andrea and Ronelle, they've been doing the program with me. They're only 3 months into the program, and they've already noticed these amazing kind of changes themselves already, which is fantastic. And pretty much the 2 ways that I was saying that, you can kind of start working with me. The one is by either joining the 5-day, the 7-day clean eating challenge, which kicks off tomorrow. So that one is for 500 Rand, and I know Chitra, you're already in there. So if anyone else is watching, like Anne, if you do want to join in, I'm going to give that to you guys for half price if you want, because you are here, and that is going to be my little gift for you if you're needing like a group to be accountable for. So there's a little link I'll share with you, and that in kind of like other, you just say, Nina, you said I could get a gift, and you pop that in, and I'll make sure that's sorted. And then the other way is to have a chat with me to find out kind of if the program is right for you, when it would be right for you. We start, I have 3 start dates a year. So the next start date is on the 7th of March. Then I do my next take in July, and the next take in November. So if March sounds too soon, there's always an option of later in the year. But again, because I'm quite picky with who I take, we need to have a chat and make sure that you really do kind of will mesh and work nicely with the group. So those are pretty much the 2 ways that we can start working together. The 5 spaces still open for March, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to leave my little slide thingy doodah here. And if you want to, oh, it never pins me. If you want to ask any questions, you're welcome to ask questions. You can unmute. If you had any ahas, you can let me know. I'll stay on for another 5 minutes or so. And if I think of anything else, I'll let you know. But yeah. Chitras, do you have a question?
Yeah, so your clean eating challenge starts tomorrow. So that's a matter of actually practicing the intermittent fasting, isn't that?
It'll give us an opportunity to start.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. So it'll be kind of like part of it where we get to start playing with it. And maybe even like the 14-10 is too much, and maybe we start with like a 12-12. And we progress from there. So yeah, we'll start kind of getting into that a little bit more from tomorrow.
And what do you think about keeping like a journal? What do you call it? Like a food journal or something? Does it help one to be more conscious of what one eats and all that? I just struggle with the breaks, 4 or 5 hour breaks between the meals. I'm really struggling. I mean, some days I'm okay, some days I'm just not. And it is about procrastinating, because I've got so much on my plate, and yeah, I end up going into the kitchen and finding something to eat, and that's what happens.
Exactly.
But I also tried drinking the tea and having maybe a biscuit immediately after my food, so that I'm not snacking in between. So I'm trying little things like that.
And that's absolutely perfect. And that's what you want to be noticing, is that, to make a big leap, a big change immediately is always very, very difficult. But like small little changes, like you're saying, you're doing your tea or your water between the meals, and you just keep building that, and you keep doing that, and you catch yourself when you're procrastinating, and you get straight back to the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
But the idea of keeping a food journal, that's why I like to keep my meal plans that I do, because then it gives me inspiration. Like the first couple of times, you're always thinking, oh, what am I going to have this week? But then when you look back at them, it's very easy. You can be like, oh, I like this, and I like this, and I like this, and this combination worked well, and this combination worked well. Like I did roast veggies for lunch, and then I just used those and threw them in a soup for dinner. And that was easy and quick. So definitely kind of keeping those that you're doing is really, really helpful. And then also seasonally, you just start to notice what you're able to cook more in summer versus what you're able to cook in autumn.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm quite good with that. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
Thanks.
want to ask, you said hot water or room temperature water. What about cold water?
No, in Ayurveda, we don't do cold water.
No.
Sorry, Anne. The problem with cold water is that it's too much of a shock for your stomach to handle. Chitra will probably be able to kind of go more deeper into this with than me, but your body then has to work even harder to try and first stabilize it, to bring it to the temperature where it can then digest it and move it through the system. When it is so cold, it's too much of a shock. Whereas when it is room temperature or warm water or hot water that you're sipping, it is more the temperature that is internal, so it is able to be absorbed and utilized by the body a lot more easily. With that said, every now and then I do enjoy throwing a little bit of ice into, some soda water when I'm having, a party out there with like a squirt of lemon, or this is like Nina going wild. And that'll kind of like be my treat. But it's kind of one of those things once in a while. My digestion is good and strong. I know I'm able to handle it. It's not a problem. When I know that my digestion is a little iffy, a little off, then I'll stay away from cold ice water. What you'll probably find as well is if you start drinking room temperature water, it sounds like counterintuitive, but you'll be less hot. It's like when you eat ice cream, because there's so much sugar in there, it creates so much heat. So that's why they say, like, if you eat ice cream, you should do it in winter. Whereas, mind you, that's not very Ayurvedic. But because of that high kind of sugar content and creating heat, and like in summer, you should always be drinking tea. I think it's more from Chinese medicine that comes, because even though tea is warming, it actually has a cooling effect on the body. So that's an aside. So sorry, no cold water.
And in your Nourish and Restore podcast, where can we access that?
Nourishandrestore.yoga. That's that website with Nicole and me. Otherwise, if you Google Nourish and Restore, Nina and Nicole, that should come up. Otherwise, we've got a Facebook page, Nourish and Restore. And in the Yoga Awakening Africa Facebook page on a Wednesday, I'll always post that. So if you go to one of those Facebook pages, you'll definitely pick that up.
And then just where we can find out what our doshas are.
Banyan Botanical. Let me just see if I can quickly give you the link. Here we go. Let me just copy that. I'll pop it in the chat. Oh, hold on, where are you guys? Chat.
Sorry, write it down.
Yeah. So they've got a free dosha quiz. It's quite in depth and it's really good, and they really they do it nicely. When you do it, tip, be really don't do these quizzes or tips with like the idea of like the way you want to be or what you wish you had, because that's how I used to like do them. I'm like, oh, I really wish I had like, I was stable and I wouldn't get like pissed off and frustrated. Like I wish I had quite calm. Like I'm a yogi. I should be calm and stable. And I'm like, Nina, if you actually look at yourself, that's definitely not where your mind is at. Like you can snap like that, be honest. So that is the thing. When you do these tests, don't do it by looking at like, ideally what you want. Be really honest and be like, this is actually how I am.
Yeah, because I think that's where to start.
Yeah. And then I think sorry, say again.
No, I think one has to think a little bit about this and put your toes in the water before you commit, and you can't keep it up.
Yes, and start with like baby steps. So if you know that if you're writing down and you're noticing that your current feeding hours times are like, or your fasting time is maybe like 8 and your feeding hours are 16, then see what happens if you work to 9 and 15, and then 10 and 14, you know, like just play with it really, really slowly. And then at some point you'll get to like 12 and 12. And then maybe at some point you'll get to like 13, 15, 12, 13, 11. And so you dip your toes in that way, where you're not like going straight to like, woohoo, I'm going to do like a 20-hour fast and a 4-hour, you know, eating window. That some people can do that and they feel fabulous. But, you know, for most, we really just need to look at, okay, like, where am I now? And what is the smallest, most doable step I can take to move in the direction of where I want to go? So maybe the goal is like in 3 months' time, I want to be able to do like 14 10s regularly every single day. Now, how can I slowly move myself towards that goal? And working with it that way. So yeah, totally very difficult when we're not doing anything to make a big shift or a big change, but give yourself like a time period as to like when you ideally want to reach maybe doing a 14-10 or a 16-8, and work backwards from there and see, okay, like how small can I make a change today to kind of like impact tomorrow? And it might not even be like feeding and fasting hours. It might just be, okay, I was chatting about water and now I've got to switch from cold water to room temperature water. Okay, let me see how I can do that.
Yeah,
and I'm just going to drink water between meals.
Yeah, so if, for example, like I'm quite happy to wake up in the morning and not eat breakfast, but I'm drinking a couple of cups of tea or coffee. So if I just make the switch now to doing that black instead of with milk, then that's kind of like quite a long fasting period already.
Yeah, exactly.
I just need to time it.
And also what you might want to look at is bulletproof coffee. See, I don't do coffee or teas at all. I'll do like spiced, I don't know if you can see in here. No, not really. Like I throw in, I usually do CCF, but I don't have cumin at the moment. So I've got like coriander and fennel seeds in here. And that's what I'll be like sipping on, because that's really nice for the digestion. But for those who do coffee, I think green teas are fine. They have something called, I'm going to see it's stuck in my throat. That's the negative when you start drinking seed water. They have something called bulletproof coffee, where I think they throw in ghee or something like that. So yeah, if you Google bulletproof coffee, they do that with something or another. I was meant to do it before this chat and I just actually forgot. But have a look. A lot of people will either often break their fast with that, or maybe have that if they're doing longer fasts, just to help them get through to the amount of hours before they have a full meal. So maybe check out what that's all about. So yeah, cool. Any last question or comments? Because I see we've gone way over time, sorry. But I do like to have time to answer questions.
Yeah. No, I think we've got a lot to think about and to plan.
Cool. Yeah, and make it
Thank
as
you very
easy as possible. Like, yeah, seriously, as easy as possible. So definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Have a good day, and we'll catch up with you guys soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.